out there, very good evening and welcome to the news tonight, where we get you the day's top developing stories from India and across the world. I'm Tracy Shilshi and here are the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Tel Aviv to an unprecedented welcome by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Dinner hosted by the Israeli Prime Minister to precede a day of high-level meetings tomorrow. Supreme Court gives the centre and the RBI 2 weeks to come up with a plan to address demonetization concerns. Court says requests of those who had genuine difficulties in exchanging old currency must be considered. The encounter ends in Jammu and Kashmir as the body of a third terrorist is recovered after a gun battle that lasts over 24 hours. 2 army personnel sustained minor injuries during the operation in Bamnu area of Pulwama district. Protests outside the Chinese embassy in New Delhi after Beijing stops Indian pilgrims from visiting Kailash Mansarovar. Protesters urge public to ban Chinese products. And on American Independence Day, North Korea launches its first intercontinental ballistic missile that it claims can land anywhere in the world. South Korea says it's maintaining military readiness against the irresponsible provocation. Our top story this evening, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived for a 3-day visit to Israel on Tuesday, and in an unprecedented gesture, he was accorded a special welcome with the Israeli Prime Minister and his entire cabinet receiving him at the airport, an honor so far bestowed only upon the US President and the Pope. The two leaders will hold delegation-level talks on Wednesday and discuss common challenges like terrorism and ways to boost economic ties.
In an extraordinary welcome, Prime Minister Narendra Modi being received by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu upon his arrival at the Ben Gurion airport on Tuesday evening. Netanyahu broke protocol to extend an honor that was accorded only to the US President and the Pope. Hailing Modi as a great leader of India and a great world leader, Netanyahu said his country has been waiting for a visit by an Indian Prime Minister for the last 70 years.
Aapka suhagat hai, mere dost. Your Make in India initiative meets my Make with India policy. We're setting up a $40 million innovation fund as the seed for even greater cooperation on technology between us.
Narendra Modi, who is on a 3-day visit to the country, was also guard of honor. In a brief address at the airport, both leaders pledged to push bilateral relations and jointly deal with the common threats like terrorism.
My visit marks a path-breaking journey of engagement, a journey that we are excited to undertake together for the good of our people and society.
Official engagements and summit-level talks between the two prime ministers will take place on Wednesday. Modi's visit is aimed at commemorating 25 years of establishing diplomatic ties between India and Israel. The Prime Minister will be in Israel till July 6th before travelling to Hamburg in Germany to attend the G20 summit. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, in national news, the Supreme Court today granted the Centre and the Reserve Bank of India 2 weeks to consider the option of allowing people to deposit their demonetized notes. A bench comprising Chief Justice J.S. Kehar and Justice D.Y. Chandrachud asked Solicitor General and the Centre's representative Ranjit Kumar to take instructions on the issue. The bench was hearing a batch of petitions and was of the opinion that people who have a compelling reason for not depositing the old 500 and 1,000 rupee notes should be allowed to do so. The Solicitor General then sought time to seek instructions for granting an opportunity to persons to deposit their money on a case-by-case basis. Prime Minister Modi had on the 8th of November last year announced that 500 and 1,000 currency notes would no longer be a legal tender. People were given time until the 31st of March to deposit the money at RBI branches after complying with formalities. The encounter in Pulwama that started on Monday ended finally today. The body of the third terrorist who was killed in the encounter that started yesterday was recovered. The gun battle started yesterday after security forces launched a search operation following a tip-off about the presence of terrorists in Bamnu area of Pulwama. 2 terrorists were killed yesterday. Combing operations were suspended today. 2 army personnel sustained minor injuries during the operation. Now to the latest on the India-China diplomatic row. When scores of protesters held a demonstration in New Delhi to protest China's decision to block the entry of Indian pilgrims to Kailash Mansarovar in Tibet. China had last week suspended the annual Hindu pilgrimage at the Nathula Pass, which lies on the frontier between Sikkim and Tibet. This was in response to alleged intrusion of Indian troops into its territory. Protesters gathered outside Chinese embassy in the national capital and burnt photographs of the Chinese president. They also urged people to boycott the use of Chinese goods.
पिछले कुछ दिनों पहले आपने देखा कि चाइना ने भारत के नागरिकों को एक मानसरोवर यात्रा से रोका। उसके बाद उन्होंने हमारी सीमा रेखा के अंदर आकर हमारे सैनिकों के साथ दुर्व्यवहार किया। हम उसको चेताना चाहते हैं कि अब भारत आपकी जो बर्बरता है ये नहीं सहेगा।
I request all of our Indian friends or Indian citizens that please boycott Chinese good and please use Indian made products because the product we are buying from China is misusing that money.
China said that it would not allow pilgrims from India to visit Kailash Mansarovar if the situation was not resolved. India has refused to come to the threats, though, saying that the dispute began when China removed an old Indian bunker. Meanwhile, reports claim that Indian and Chinese soldiers have dug into positions and pitched tents in anticipation of a prolonged confrontation near the Sikkim-Bhutan-Tibet tri-junction. Reports also claim that the Navy is closely monitoring an unusual surge in the number of Chinese warships in the Indian Ocean region. The situation in Darjeeling remained tense as the agitation for a separate Gorkha land entered its 20th day today. Internet services remain suspended for the 17th day in a row as Darjeeling extended the strike for 8 more days on Monday. Except for pharmacies, shops, restaurants, hotels, schools and colleges remain closed. Boarding schools also extended their vacation due to the ongoing unrest in the hills. The Gorkha Janmukti Morcha is taking out rallies in various parts of the hills in support of its demand for a separate Gorkhaland. It demanded that its centre initiate a dialogue on Gorkhaland, which it said is the aspiration of the local residents. They also said that the Mamata Banerjee government in West Bengal is dealing with it as a law and order problem when it demands a political solution.
I feel amazed at, Gautam Dev when he says there are no human rights here and all. I think this is a part of human rights, We're entitled, it's a democratic right. It's a freedom of speech and expression. We express our feelings, we express our opinions through the media, through the net, through WhatsApp, through Facebook. Now, I don't know how, a government that claims to be democratic, can do such a thing. An administration can, deprive us of our right to freedom of expression that is guaranteed in the Constitution.
Achal Kumar Jyoti is all set to be the next Chief Election Commissioner of India. The Law Ministry announced Jyoti's appointment on Tuesday and said that he will take charge as the CAC on the 6th of July when incumbent Naseem Zaidi retires. An IAS officer of 1975 batch from Gujarat cadre, 64-year-old Jyoti had served as Chief Secretary of Gujarat during Narendra Modi's tenure as Chief Minister. The Chief Election Commissioner heads the Election Commission of India and has a tenure of 6 years in office or till he or she attains the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. As CEC of India, Jyoti will be overseeing the state assembly elections in Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh before demitting office in January 2018. Meanwhile, on a nationwide tour ahead of the presidential elections later this month, NDA's candidate Ramnath Kovind met leaders of the TRS in Hyderabad. Kovind assured the legislators that the office of the president was above party politics and he would strive to uphold the constitution. Kovind also said that although he was a member of the BJP earlier, he should not be seen as any particular party's candidate. Kovind was accompanied by Union Ministers M. Venkaiah Naidu, Bandaru Dattatreya and other BJP leaders. The TRS is not an ally of the NDA but has declared to support Kovind's candidature. The Election Commission on Tuesday issued a notification for the upcoming vice presidential election. The election for the post of vice president is scheduled to be held on the 5th of August. The last date for filing nominations is the 18th of July, while the last date for withdrawal of candidature is the 21st of July. Neither the ruling NDA nor the opposition has so far announced their respective candidates for the post. The term of Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari, who held the post for 2 terms in a row, is coming to an end on the 10th of August. For the vice presidential election, a candidate needs 20 proposers and 20 seconders who should be members of parliament.
The Election Commission has sounded the bugle for the elections to the post of Vice President of India. We have with us the Assistant Returning Officer for these elections and a senior official in the Rajya Sabha Secretariat, Mr. Mukul Pandey. Pandeyji, the entire schedule is out, the notification is out today, and it's being said that the elections, if necessary, will take place on 5th. How will the entire process work for this almost a month?
Yeah, as you know, the notification has been issued today, and with this, the election process has started. The nomination papers can be filed up to 3 p.m. on 18th of July, and thereafter on 19th in the morning at 11 o'clock, the scrutiny of the nomination papers will take place, and those whose nomination papers which are found valid after the scrutiny, those candidates, they can withdraw their names from the fray till 21st of July by 3 p.m. And if there are more than one candidate left after that, then there will be election, and that election will take place on 5th of August. The polling time will be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And immediately thereafter, about 1 hour or so, the counting will start, and hopefully in an hour's time, the result will be declared.
Okay, it's going to be a quick affair, the same day voting, same day polling, because the Electoral College consists only of members of Parliament from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So essentially, a lot of preparation must have been done. Are you guys all well set to ensure that everything is done as per the instructions of the Election Commission and on time?
Yeah, our people are quite experienced. They have conducted these president and vice presidential elections a number of times. So they are well prepared, they are well equipped. We have taken all the measures, including the security, and the election process will go as per the schedule.
Okay, thank you so much. So this was the Assistant Returning Officer for the Vice Presidential Elections, Mr. Mukul Pandey. It seems the entire setup is all ready and ready to go to ensure that it is once again a free and fair election for the post of Vice President of India. With camera person Saroj, this is Vishal Diya, Rajya Sabha TV, Delhi.
Well, Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari on Tuesday met Deputy Prime Minister of Vietnam Pham Binh Minh, and Minh, along with his delegation, was accorded a ceremonial welcome at the Vice President's house. Both leaders discussed strategic and bilateral issues at the meeting. Minh, who is also the Foreign Minister of Vietnam, met his counterpart Sushma Swaraj. The two leaders discussed mutual and regional issues at the meet. With that, let's take a look at what else made news across the country today in Nationwide. The Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly meetings came to an untimely halt today after MLAs clashed over the implementation of GST in the state. MLAs from the Congress and National Conference opposed the implementation of the new tax regime. Police had earlier detained several traders after they had tried to march towards the State Assembly to protest the implementation of GST in its present form. Over 200 senior central government officers will monitor district-level implementation of goods and services tax with a focus on resolving difficulties faced by the consumers. The government has clubbed each district of the country in 166 clusters, aligning them with the administrative divisions of the Central Revenue Department. The officers have been asked to monitor availability of essential commodities and retail price trends. The Supreme Court has issued a new order which allows liquor shops to function within 500 meters of a national highway if the state chooses to denotify the route. It observed that the purpose of its judgment was to ensure that drivers under the influence of alcohol do not get onto high-speed national highways. The move will benefit numerous bars in cities such as Bengaluru, where vast stretches of important thoroughfares totaling 78 kilometers are actually parts of 6 national highways. International news now. In North Korea said on Tuesday that it had successfully tested its first intercontinental ballistic missile. South Korea, Japan and China condemned the launch that came as Americans prepared to mark their Independence Day, triggering a Twitter outburst from President Donald Trump. Here's a report.
North Korea claimed it successfully tested its first long-range intercontinental missile that it says can reach anywhere in the world. Called the Hwasong-14 on state TV, Tuesday morning's missile reached a height above 2,500 kilometers. Taking off from the Bangyeon airfield in the town of Kusong, it flew 578 miles before landing in the sea between North Korea and Japan.
동지의 전략적 결단에 따라 조선민주주의인민공화국 국방과학원 과학자 기술자들은 새로 연구 개발한 대륙간 탄도로켓 화성 14형 시험 발사를 성공적으로 진행하였다.
South Korea strongly condemned what it called an irresponsible provocation, saying it is maintaining military readiness for a possible further provocation by North Korea.
오전 9시 40분경 평안북도 방현 일대에서 동해상으로 불상 탄도미사일 한 발을 발사했습니다. 미국은 북한의 추가 도발 가능성에 대비하여 만반의 대비 태세를 유지하고 있습니다.
If confirmed, the intercontinental ballistic missile could potentially have the range to reach the US mainland. The launch happened hours before Independence Day celebrations started in the United States, triggering a Twitter outburst from US President Donald Trump, who urged North Korea's neighbor China to end this nonsense once and for all. Japan strongly protested what it called a clear violation of UN resolutions. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said he plans to ask China and Russia to play a more constructive role in dealing with North Korea and its weapons development program at this week's G20 summit in Germany.
北朝鮮がまたもや弾道ミサイルの発射を強行しました。度重なる国際社会の警告を無視するものであります。日米韓の結束のもとに国際社会の圧力を強化してまいります。
China, North Korea's northern neighbor and one of the only countries in the region with diplomatic ties to Pyongyang, urged restraint after the launch. It also opposed North Korea's going against the clear rules set by the UN Security Council resolutions.
安理会有关决议对朝鲜利用弹道导弹技术进行发射活动有着明确的规定。中方反对朝鲜违反安理会的决议进行有关发射活动，敦促朝方不要再采取违反安理会决议的行动，为重启对话谈判创造必要的条件。
The United Nations has imposed multiple sets of sanctions on Pyongyang over its weapons program. North Korea, in its defense, says it needs nuclear arms to defend itself against the threat of invasion. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In other news, energy-rich Qatar has announced plans to increase natural gas production by 30% of the next several years. The decision comes on the back of increased pressure from its neighbors in a diplomatic crisis. The emirate intends to raise production of natural gas a year to 100 million tons by 2024. The timing of the announcement is as much political as it is economic. Qatar had given its formal response to a list of demands made by its neighbors for lifting their sanctions upon it. The proposed consequences include threat to sanction any international firm working with Qatar if it failed to meet their demands. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt and Bahrain severed ties with Qatar last month, accusing it of supporting terrorism. Doha denies the accusation. The four Arab states will next meet on Wednesday to discuss whether to end the crisis or impose further sanctions on Qatar.
لقد أعلنا في إبريل الماضي عن تطوير مشروع غاز جديد يخصص للتصدير في القطاع الجنوبي لحقل الشمال. وبعد إجراء مزيد من الدراسات الفنية فقد ارتأينا أن الخيار الأمثل هو مضاعفة حجم المشروع من 2 إلى 4 مليار قدم مكعب يومياً. وهذا يعتبر زيادة 20% من الإنتاج الحالي في حقل الشمال أو ما يعادل 1,000,000 برميل مكافئ من النفط يومياً. وقد قررنا أن أفضل السبل لتطوير هذا المشروع الضخم هو تصديره كغاز مسال، وبذلك سنرفع الطاقة الإنتاجية للغاز المسال من 77 مليون طن سنويا إلى 100 مليون طن سنويا، وهو ما يشكل زيادة بنسبة 30%، وسيتم إنجاز هذا المشروع خلال 5 إلى 7 سنوات من الآن بإذن الله تعالى.
France's new president, Emmanuel Macron, has proposed a radical change in the country's government. Speaking at a historic palace of Versailles, Macron said that he planned to cut the number of lawmakers by a third. The French president added that he has a broad mandate after sweeping the winds in presidential and parliamentary elections this year. He further added that he would seek direct approval from voters in a referendum if Parliament failed to sign off his intended institutional reforms quickly enough. The proposed cuts would reduce the number of National Assembly members from 577 to 385 and the number of Senate members from 348 to 232.
de la Constitution, la déclaration du président de la République.
Que nous laissons la France sans défense face au terrorisme et de l'autre que nous bradons nos libertés. Eh bien, rien de tout cela n'est vrai. Derrière tous ces faux procès, on trouve le même vice. Le vice qui empoisonne depuis trop longtemps le débat public.
And here are more international news updates in Global Buzz. US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces breached the wall around Raqqa's old city. It marked a major advance in the weeks-old battle to drive Islamic State militants out of their self-declared capital. Sources said that both the IS and the YPG were not currently pushing forward in the Hay al-Sinai region. The fifth round of talks on ending the 6-year Syrian conflict started in Kazakhstan today. The two-day peace talks, sponsored by Russia, Iran and Turkey, will focus on establishing 4 safe zones in the country. The meetings are set to involve bilateral talks before a plenary session, bringing together all the participants. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker scolded the European Parliament members over meagre attendance at the plenary session. Members failed to turn up for an address by Malta's Prime Minister Joseph Muscat. Juncker said that they should show more respect for smaller members of the bloc. At least 56 people were killed and 22 others missing as heavy rains left a trail of destruction in 11 Chinese provinces. 27,000 houses collapsed while 37,000 others were damaged in floods, landslides and hailstorms in various parts. Rescue personnel in Yangjing City, Guangdong Province, helped evacuate local residents from flooded homes. The Philippine Supreme Court endorsed President Rodrigo Duterte's enforcement of martial law across the southern part of the country. Meanwhile, militants continue to occupy parts of Marawi, the Islamic capital of the mainly Catholic country. Despite a US-backed military offensive, it has claimed more than 460 lives and displaced nearly 400,000 people. On to sports now. In India, are placed on top of the table in the ICC Women's World Cup 2017, having won all 3 matches in the tournament so far. They grabbed a convincing win against England before thumping West Indies and Pakistan. On Wednesday, the team will play Sri Lanka. However, Captain Mithali Raj has cautioned against complacency, saying that the fall of wickets at regular intervals could create immense pressure for the batters who have to come in next. Raj also said that the team's plan for Sri Lanka would depend on the pitch that they play on. Against Pakistan, even though the team did not post a huge total, the captain's plan to push the opponent on the back foot worked quite well. On Wednesday too, the plan is to quick wickets if the pitch plays its part.
So, a very happy...
In tennis, top seed Angelique Kerber defeated American Irina Falconi in the first round of Wimbledon to stay on course towards the final. She recorded a 6-4, 6-4 victory over the American qualifier after an hour and 27 minutes of play on centre court. However, it was far from a straightforward victory for the world number 1, whose serve was broken twice by Falconi, but the German prevailed with her powerful play. In the men's singles, the top players proceeded through the second round with little difficulty. Second-seeded Novak Djokovic's opponent, Martin Klizan, retired hurt after the Serbian had won the first set and was leading in the second. The three-time Wimbledon champion won the first set 6-3 before a limping Klizan called the trainer on court to treat a leg injury. In the second set too, Djokovic led 2-0 before Klizan limped to the umpire to pull out.
Love 30. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, Mr.
That's all we have for you in the news tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.